on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Hiding from the spotlight. A big, long, elongated red we are the people, inherently and historically, opposed to secret society. There is something that we come this way.
Shut down our government's defense system.
And we are continuing on at the United States Airport is withholding information from the general public on this subject.
The Church of Mabus.
Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show, everybody. It's Saturday night. Saturday Night Live. We're back. Storms headed our way in Florida. They just hit JoJo World, but they weren't too bad there, so hopefully they're not too bad here. I was on the UFO Paranormal Radio Roundtable Thursday on Second Sight, New York City. If you haven't listened to it, it's on the archives at paranormalradionetwork.org. So you should check it out. Hear my sexiness on the roundtable. That's right. I'm on the roundtable. And
You're
also,
too sexy for the roundtable.
I know. I'm too sexy for the roundtable. And also, tomorrow I'll be on Erica Ghosh's show. She's going to be interviewing me. I'm doing 3 shows in a week. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just like...
Mine, man.
Yeah, man. I'm like, I don't know who I'm like, but I'm doing a lot of shows this week. But, next Saturday is, who's, I guess, Stella O. She's the author of Star Sister. And Erica Ghosh is going to be co-hosting with me then. So that's basically like indigo stuff and, stuff like that. So I got 2 chicks that'll be on and doing a show. So we'll have lots of feminine goddess energy on that show. That's right.
That's nice.
That's right. That's right. We're going to tap into the feminine goddess energy. Tonight we have a lady guest. It's been a while since we've had a lady guest, I think. I'm trying to think. It's been a little while. It's been a sausage fest for a while. We got Eugenia Macer Story, and the title of the show, Pulse of the Dragon, Secret Knowledge of the Pirates. And our co-host, Ezelbub Alzarad.
That's right.
I summoned forth another creature from the Necronomicon to help me co-host tonight.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's for a good reason.
That's right. And we're going to talk about pirates. So, Eugenia, when it comes to pirates, what kind of pirates do you mean? Do you mean pirates like the pirates? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about all sorts of pirates, from pirates that are literally on ships to pirates that will pirate your material from the computer to financial pirates, all sorts of people that are using their wits to circumvent various situations, and also in doing that are using their ESP and other forms of persuasion that they have used for centuries.
That's interesting. So it sounds like you're talking about a pirate being kind of a blanket concept for a group of people who are especially gifted towards the occult or psychic sciences and that type of thing.
Yes, exactly. And also there are traditions of using such abilities which are part of the piracy in the same sense that the pirates on a ship are sort of a gang. The idea of a tradition that where their techniques are passed on from generation to generation is also important. In my book, I talk about the commedia, the Tuscan commedia. It's something that most people don't realize is that the pagan tradition of the gods and so forth was preserved in the commedia. Of course, when the Church of Rome took over, they obviously were prohibited, but they could survive in the commedia and in the circuses, and so there is a tradition, spell casting and use of mental faculties and so forth that is in that tradition. So. Right.
Well, the carnival and the circus have always been a very mysterious concepts also. So it's kind of like, I guess the pirates or these magicians kind of sought like refuge in this group.
Yes. And also the group practicing this form of shamanism or magic was native to that area. I'm thinking of the Tuscan commedia. They're up in the Alps, and they were practicing various pagan rituals and so forth at the same time as perhaps doing the commedia, but it began to become fused. The commedia, of course, is Roman.
Okay. So. I'm not very familiar with that particular concept of the commedia, but it's pretty fascinating. Right.
Well, they have masks, and the masks are very important, as in people might be more familiar with African masks, Japanese masks, and so forth. But the commedia masks are of the gods and of archetypal figures. And the archetypal charlatan con man of the commedia, Brugella, is always portrayed as an Arab, or you might say possibly a Jew, but an Arab, comes from the Mideast.
Sure.
And he's in the commedia, and he tells fortunes, and he cons people, and there is and he's supposed to have quite a bit of power. His mask looks a bit like Darth Vader.
Awesome.
So
it seems like the people who are involved in the commedia use these masks in kind of a hermetic ritual fashion for a type of like an evocation or invocation of these archetypal concepts. And so is that something, because I mean I'm familiar with a lot of hermetic concepts and ritual magic and this and that, but so was that their vehicle in a sense?
Yes. They have preserved a much older tradition of the gods and so on. And of course, the pagan gods that were in the Alps and also northern Germany, Eastern Europe, are not the same as the gods of Rome.
Right.
And those are in the commedia as well. So, yes. And there are what we would call maybe looking like devil masks and so on, but they're not. They're nature god masks, and they're also, the ingenue, the angry father, and so on. All of those are separate masks, and they come together for these performances. The performances were usually outdoors or in an arena situation.
So it's very pagan in its nature, or
yes.
more or less.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So Eugenia, where does the dragon into this? That has to do with how does the dragon fit in, and has that got to do with the ley lines, the dragon ley lines?
It does have to do with the ley lines, but it also has to do with martial arts dragon power, which I think are both the same thing, only one is in the human body and it interlinks with the earth dragon lines. It is the linkage with something beyond the individual practitioner.
Okay.
And also the ley lines, the dragon lines, would be areas where unusual things happen, but also where unusual things don't necessarily happen. There are areas where these ley lines cross or converge, and this is what was worked with by magicians of all nationalities. We call it dragon power because both the magicians of the British Isles and the Chinese identify this with dragons, fire-breathing dragons, and so forth. But in the martial art, it is the ability of the practitioner to become the dragon, to add this energy to the practitioner's energy, to cause effects. And
like the transformation into the creature.
Yes, it's not necessarily transformation into a dragon, but it's assuming the
right.
dragon's
It's not a literal. It's not a literal concept, more or less, right? It's you become the force.
That's right. That's right. And then this links in with the dragon power of the ley lines, in that there are certain areas, quite certainly, it's not necessarily only gravitational, but they are areas which facilitate the flow of this energy.
Right.
So
can the dragon power, can that be associated with the ki or the kundalini and raising the serpent cone and all those types of this?
Yes, well, the kundalini is symbolized as a serpent also going up the spine. I think that there is a reason that all of this is thought to be serpent-like, and it is not only that it is felt sort of as something like a wave crawling up the spine or whatever.
Right.
Not just that. It's because the serpent, the wisdom of the serpent, is not necessarily emotional in a conventional sense. And when you must know this if you've worked with magic and sorcery, there is a state of mind which is transpersonal, and when the magician is in this state of mind, it's not ordinary emotion.
Right.
So,
it's a totally different frame of consciousness.
Right.
I mean, at times, I would consider the serpent power to be almost alien in nature. You know, and in the experiments that I've done on a subjective level, when I was raising the serpent cone, and I had the experience of the energy flowing through these ley lines on my body, it seemed very alien. Probably simply because I'd never experienced it before. So.
Right, the energy meridians of the body. This was not the same as the chakra system. It's interesting that it's not the same, but it isn't. There is
those are like glands, you know.
Right.
That's kind of how I see it. It's more like glands, and then these ley lines and all these points in our body is like the nervous system in a way.
Right.
Hey, I have a question from an audience member. Does the serpent power have anything to do with the Serpent Mound in Ohio, and are there ley lines there? Is there a connection? Interestingly enough, I just interviewed Ross Hamilton. I'm putting it up very soon about that Serpent Mound in Ohio. So is that the ley line?
Yeah, well, not a ley line. It's the Serpent Mound is considered to be a special area where it does facilitate use of mental faculties, use of, I would say, spellcasting or projective power, and also the ESP of people that are in that area is enhanced. The ley lines are perhaps intersecting there. I have not studied the ley lines of the area. I do have anecdotes from people who've been there that had very unusual experiences, and probably the people that built that mound were aware innately that the energy of the area was different when they built it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So it's the year of the dragon now, and next year is the year of the serpent, which I find that interesting as far as it being the year of the dragon and the serpent. But there's been people throughout history who've embodied the dragon on some level. You have Vlad the Impaler, Dracula, which means son of the dragon, or if you want to get religious, the devil. You got King Arthur, which is a little more positive than Vlad the Impaler, of course. And then you have these dragon lords and stuff like that. Are you think that people who are embodying this energy, what do you think the influence is on these people? Why the fascination with the dragon so much?
Power, the sense of power and influx of power that people have when they are focusing their energies. And the dragon is huge. It breathes fire.
Right.
And that's the feeling. I think also, there were dragons in the old days, very palpable, we might call them dinosaurs, or maybe they were dragons.
Right.
And
I believe in dragons, personally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also, I think another good representation of somebody who embodied the dragon was Bruce Lee, like in an arts standpoint. And personally, I think that Bruce Lee is one of the most amazing people that's ever lived.
He is amazing. I mean, oftentimes people have very particular abilities, and you don't realize until you stop and think that what they're doing is incredible.
Right.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Lee considered the dragon. Bruce Lee.
Right. And, I mean, that guy changed people's lives in a big way, and revolutionized some pretty serious culture,
So, do you think the dragon energy has anything to do with, reptilian beings, or is it just an energetic, an energy? I mean, there's so many, as far as in ufology and stuff, there's the reptilians, and there seems to be a serpent energy, and the dragon energy. What is it? Is there a connection to that, like planetary or extraterrestrial? Was that where it's power from?
I think it isn't necessarily extraterrestrial, although I have an open mind. I don't know for sure. But I think it is what we were discussing before, that the reptilian psychology is different than ordinary human psychology, and it is palpably different. It's more calculating. And not that to be calculating is necessarily negative, but it is, the level of emotion is different.
Right.
And I am to think that I have never seen a reptilian, or I've never seen a dragon, but I certainly know what it feels like. And I know the ferocity of the attack. We're talking about Bruce Lee and so on. One of the keys to martial arts is it's a ferocious attack, but it's not an emotional attack. It's
controlled.
Yes. And I think that's what the reptilian is like. However, in my book, I talk about, humorously, but I talk about this Chihuahua power. The little head of the Chihuahua looks a little bit like a reptile in the sense that it's hairless and has this little snout. And these couple of experiences I had where
they get pretty intense.
Yeah.
Chihuahuas.
They are, and they will go right, they're small, but like a snake, they will go and bite.
Right.
And I think it is something, the distinction of the serpent from the dragon is that the serpent can be very small, but its bite can kill you.
Right.
So that's part of the distinction. But I don't, I'm not sure. I do have a recent experience with something that is related to the Sasquatch theme, which is it came out on some film that I took in the subway, believe it or not, the East Broadway subway stop last month. Saw a marking on the wall, and so I took a picture of it because it looked sort of like a person's head and shoulders in a hood.
Right.
And when the picture came out, it was more than that. It was a three-dimensional figure with hair on it, not looking like an ape-like face. You couldn't really see the face. It looked more like a hood with curly fur on it, and right down to the feet. But it's a three-dimensional figure. I'm not guaranteeing that it is human.
Sure.
I think that many of the apparitions that people see are actually other types of beings, like angels, demons, elementals, and so forth. And so that's why I reserve judgment on a lot of these things. I take these things as they appear, or as people have experienced them, and I don't categorize them right away. In fact, that picture that I took, I haven't written about it yet. It's just lying on my desk, and I'll figure out how I do it in time.
So you take some time to stew over it and see, like, what pops up, and maybe if some other things start happening, like you have another similar experience, and then maybe that type of thing is on the rise at the moment, for you.
Right. Well, previous to that, I'd never seen anything that resembled a Sasquatch at all.
Right.
I have had experiences with hissing, speaking of dragons or maybe serpent, not small hissing like a serpent, but hissing sounds that really took me by surprise. But other than that, it is the feeling of the energy and so forth that is the dragon. For me.
So it seems like it's a really primal, unconscious sensation.
Yes.
Like where you say that you feel it, you feel when it's close by, and you hear these like hissings and all that. It's like a really strong feeling. It seems like. Yes,
one or two times it really interrupted me, and I thought, I was sitting. I have a porch, and I was sitting on the porch. It's after dark, and I got up to do something, and there was this sharp hissing. I was afraid. I thought, what could it be?
Yeah.
And however, I didn't see anything. I heard it, and nothing more. Nothing attacked me, and it didn't really cue in anything, but I heard it. So.
Right. Yeah, that kind of stuff's pretty terrifying. I mean, I've had more than a few strange experiences myself, so it'll definitely throw you off.
Right. I think there's a theory that some of the more negative forces will interrupt.
Right.
But that is a theory. I also think positive forces can interrupt. As in the tarot card where someone is about to walk off the edge of a cliff, you can pull them back, and that's an interruption too. But a lot of times something like that will interrupt me when I'm on a different thread, and I have to go back to the thread. It's something that pulls you away.
So is it a negative thing then, if it's a reminder, possibly?
It's not necessarily negative. It is what it is.
Right. I like that. Makes sense to me.
Well, if you, Eugenie, if you put up something about that Bigfoot situation and want me to post it at the site at Church of Mabus Radio, let me know. I have a large group of people who are into Sasquatch that come to my site. I've been lately into Sasquatch a lot the last 3 or 4 months. I've been doing interview art. I just did a recent interview with Christopher Munch, a movie maker. He made a movie called Letters from the Big Man, and it's a great movie.
You were talking about that.
Yeah, I've mentioned that before, but I did an interview with him, and I found it people have been asking me to repost it everywhere in magazines in Australia, and he basically gets into the fact of Bigfoot being a multidimensional creature. And one thing I noticed about a lot of people in the Bigfoot community, they freaking hate comparing Bigfoot to UFOs or aliens. They go crazy if you put Bigfoot in that category. I mean, they get violent almost.
Yeah.
So I love them. I love messing with them.
Well, I think that the photo I took in the subway is definitely an interdimensional creature of some sort, but I have to figure out.
I'd like to see that also. I think that'd be really, really cool.
Okay, I will write something about it. As I said, it's lying on my desk, and I think I took a few notes, but I have not. I have described it to myself. I haven't written it down. There is a difference.
Right.
For example, the area where the hood comes around, there's like a little space that would be a person's face inside. That the rest is a very large body with this fur cloak on. So I zoomed the facial area, and it looks like almost a feminine face. It has rainbow colors on it, mostly pink, when I zoomed it. And so I printed the zoom, and then I put it back, and I thought, well, maybe I have to make sure that I'm seeing it there, or that I'm trying to make it seem as if because it's placed on the body where it would be. Right. But it definitely has a different quality than what's surrounding it, than the fur that's surrounding it. It's very, very unique. So I will think about it.
Let me
more.
know. Yeah, let me know. I'll post it for you with your link. I think the Sasquatch are related to the Nephilim on some level. I'm not going to speak in absolute, but I mean the Nephilim are giants. The giants.
It's an interesting idea.
Go ahead.
I think they could be also. One thing, when you said this, I remembered one other thing about this apparition. It has a pattern in light on its chest, and that could be. It's not a complete Kabbalistic diagram, but it has a little. It's made of light, and it has a little knob at the top and a crossbar on it with little knobs on each end of the crossbar foot of it. It's neither. It's not a crucifix. It could be a Norse rune, which means life, but it could also be the tree of life. And the fact is, well, I won't go on with it. I'm not sure that that's the right interpretation. That the idea of that could fit with why I had been at the subway station, but that's not necessarily these. I believe these beings have an agenda of their own. That I've been many times in that subway station without seeing anything.
I think some, just real quickly, I think some of the Sasquatch have gone to the light and are good, but there might be some that are rogue, like that whole missing 411 phenomenon, all these people missing and stuff. Like there's some weird stories that people are trying to think Sasquatch and take people and stuff. I've had a really weird thing happen all week with the Nephilim, but for some reason that subject keeps coming up with that word for me, like almost every day. And today it's come up about 3 times. For instance, I posted that is Bigfoot alien, some Bigfoot group. The guy started going crazy. He started talking about King Og from the Bible, and there's some weird Bigfoot king in the Bible that someone killed or something. And then my girlfriend brings home a book from a dollar store called The Nephilim Return, Total Change Today. And then I just got a video game called Darksiders 2 where you play death.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and he's one of the Nephilim. So for some weird reason, this Nephilim crap keeps coming up like all the time. I don't know what the hell it means.
Well, you know, I talk about the Nephilim in my article, Citron Returns, which was in UFOs and Supernatural magazine, and I also posted it on my Yankee Oracle site because the photographs were not clear in the magazine publication. I wanted people to see the clear photographs in it. But the section on the Nephilim is someone who is working with these as a sorcerer. He's also a real estate agent on Long Island. It's funny but not funny. You think of the price increases in real estate and so on, and you think in their offices with the Nephilim and whatnot. But yes, I'm aware of it, and I have written about that. I know there are various views of the Nephilim. They're the reverse of the Sephiroth. You pass through the gate of Doth, and then you're in Nephilim land, and they have powers, but the powers are not all positive. They're not the same powers as the Sephiroth. Their reverse powers are more earthly powers. And then the other version is that they are the giants of old and so on. So it's.
What about their I mean, I've heard some connections related them to like LOM and a more like mystical, Kabbalistic perspective of them being a creation and a reflection of the LOM.
Yeah, that's one of the Kabbalistic ideas. And it's interesting, the researcher Andrea Puhart, when I talked to him about UFOs, you work with Uri Geller and so on, and he said he's interested in sorcery and so on. He's passed away now, but he said if you see one of these things approach you, say Kadosh, Kadosh, Elohim, because that means stay at your distance, peace to the creature.
Right.
But it's not necessarily Elohim that's coming. I know that he had some very strange experiences with this.
Yeah, that's all pretty awesome. I mean, and it just gets like deeper and deeper, and it's just one of those things that the more you dig at it, like it definitely just opens up like so much more possibility.
Absolutely. I think that we are just barely realizing that we share the cosmos with creatures not only three-dimensional, or we're not only three-dimensional, we're multi-dimensional anyway.
I've never lived a day in my life that I've been conscious that I didn't think that other things didn't exist. Personally, and a lot of times growing up and that kind of stuff, people think that you're insane, but there are a lot of people born that have been born that have had this on their minds like the entire time that they've been alive, and now it's becoming more of a mainstream thought. A lot of religious concepts are changing, scientific concepts are changing, and it's all pointing more towards multi-dimensions, extraplanar beings, and the possible, even scientific explanations of angels and demons.
Yes, absolutely. And as we change our idea of where we are, like in terms of what the material universe is, the mass structure is, my view is that all mass is interpenetrated by these other dimensions. It isn't that we're on a material side and then you cross a barrier and everything, it's that all of these dimensions interpenetrate.
Right.
And the mind can go into another dimension in terms of being able to perceive.
Right.
It's hard sometimes to bring it back. If you must know this, that you can perceive things and it's perceived almost like a jigsaw puzzle or a rebus, and then you have to interpret all of that or somehow express it so that people can understand it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I draw a lot from pop culture, and one of the things that you said about having a hard time coming back was the film Insidious. It wasn't a very popular film. It didn't get a lot of great reviews, but I think that they had a really good examples in that film about astral projection, and alternate dimensions, and then being, because the main character in the story was a prolific astral traveler who had traveled so far away that he couldn't get back, and so then he was captured by an energy entity there, and they had to go in there and pull him out. So I mean, I thought that was a pretty great example from pop culture, and one of the things that influences our consciousness today. You know.
Yeah, I have various radical ideas about astral travel too. I think it's, in most cases, it's a form of clairvoyance.
Right.
But if people in the environment to which the person has traveled, or their sensibility has traveled, see them, as sometimes happens, that's very interesting too, because their body would still be in the anchor location. So there might be a situation where if that individual was perceived that and could be engaged in a conversation or diverted in some way, they could have trouble getting back into their body.
Right. Or even if they weren't aware that they were doing it.
That's right. A lot of times in dreams or other situations, people are not aware that they have been traveling.
Right.
It's interesting. I have been told once or twice, well, more than once or twice, that people have seen me where I was not, and I think this happens to people, and they're not aware of it. And it's not necessarily while they're sleeping. It would be that if they're focused on something.
Yeah, it's kind of like a astral doppelganger. You know, like you'll be in one location and people see you walk around in the daytime somewhere else.
Exactly.
Right. That's pretty awesome.
I definitely think when you sleep, we all astral travel.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, it seems like sleep is definitely like the great ocean.
I call it the little death, but you like dying, but no.
Right. Yeah, that's something that's kind of off topic, but kind of similar to what we're talking about. Is I was doing a bunch of research on the Mothman, and at the time that all this stuff was happening in Point Pleasant, there were also sightings of the Men in Black and Sasquatch. So something that's kind of blown my mind about that is what happens when all these paranormal entities potentially run into each other. You know, I mean, if we're going to believe that there is a Sasquatch and there's a creature like the Mothman and there's a secret government conspiracy going on, what happens when all these things come together? You know?
I understand what you're saying, but I think it's like what happens when people who speak different languages come together, that somehow the materialization process,
right,
not the being itself, but the ability to be visible and so on, the materialization is quite similar. So that they would, because they have to change the vibratory rate so that they become visible in our vibratory rate of the Earth.
Right. Okay.
And not that they have a mechanism to do this, but I think that there is a mental ability to do this.
Sure. Right.
And so that is much the same, I think.
I mean, I'd like to think that the Mothman and Sasquatch could hang out and have a decent conversation, you know, because it would be interesting to witness something like that.
Well, it would be. I think in all of the occult systems, as you know, there's a warning: don't mix your systems.
Right.
Because you need the background, the priming of the particular system that you're using. So they say this also in books on conjuration of angels and demons and so forth.
Right, like the Enochian language and the Gota keys and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to know who you're calling, so to speak,
right.
and that it's compatible with the situation, and that some entities aren't compatible with each other.
Right.
I just don't know. I mean, I think that is the case. It is the mind that links, that we can perceive mentally, and that our mind translates.
Right.
It's like synesthesia, where people hear colors and so forth. The mind will translate one thing into another, and so it could translate the perceptions of a dragon or a Sasquatch or a Mothman into something that is understood.
Right.
But they may not understand. Their function may be different. You see, I think it's like, as I wrote in the article, Citron Returns, it is like a chessboard where each piece has a different quality and it has different powers. So, like a Sasquatch might be a bishop or something, and it can't be a knight. The knight might be a dragon, and so forth.
So it can't move into its space, then, is what you're saying? Like they'll always be parallel to each other. That's right. That's a really good explanation, and I appreciate that, because that's really been on my mind. Just how insane that could possibly be. You know, it would be kind of like Godzilla versus Mothra or something. You know, it would just be like this very strange paranormal event, you know, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think the trickster energy that can embody these different forms that interact with whatever reason, like it can be an alien, it can be Mothman, it can be a Bigfoot or whatever. I think there's a trickster energy that likes to have fun with us.
Right.
Not there isn't an actual Mothman or Sasquatch or whatever, but
sure.
I think there's also a trickster energy that loves to have fun with people who are into the paranormal or occult. Some level.
I completely agree, because I run into that a lot in what I'm doing. That's why I'm careful. As I said, I don't react. I might react immediately if something scares me, but in terms of evaluating it, I don't evaluate right away, because there is this trickster faculty. And it is true, the old legends about how a very negative force may appear to be attractive at first, and that's part of its negativity. It's drawing energy or drawing attention.
Right.
So,
yeah, I guess that's the glamoury of it all. You know, like you get sucked into the concept, and then, you know, you find yourself in a strange position.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
That's like with Go ahead.
I was going to say, I was not to focus on my article, Citron Returns, but in that article I discussed this, that what initially looked really strange suddenly morphed into something that was actually pretty. I took a picture of it. It's a light form on the wall that looks very attractive. But I was aware that it was a trickster, that it was changing form. And so, yeah, I'm very much aware of that possibility. People do that too.
What I was going to say is, when I had all my experiences after I was healed from cancer and my dad's death, I messed around with the occult heavily. I didn't do anything stupid or hurt anybody, but anything I could find, I would read it. And there were sometimes I would be partying and partaking of illegal substances. Now I'm a good boy for the most part, but I would mess around with the Enochian magic and I would scream stuff from the Necronomicon, which some people think that's fiction, but I think there's a little bit more to it. And then I started that UFO sighting. The witnesses saw the UFOs with me. I saw some strange beings. So I definitely believe, like I said on the Paranormal Roundtable we just did, that the occult can open up doorways, and I did so foolishly. So I think to this day I still deal psychologically with some of that stuff, being an idiot back in the younger days.
That happens to a lot of people. it seems.
Yes, I think you have to take, it's not overwhelmingly serious in a self-serious way, but you have to take seriously what is happening, which is that these substances change the neural system. They change, speaking of vibrations and what can be perceived. And there are entities which from time immemorial are associated with various substances, the Hashishidim, for example, the assassins.
Right.
They, the assassins from, I think their first record is about 300 AD, and they're in Afghanistan and Pakistan area. They would use hashish, and this is how they prepare themselves to go into battle, but also the entities with which they were associated are associated with using the substance, and it does change the ability of the body to perceive them. And
hey guys, we got to go on break real quick, so if you can't hold that pose, and we'll be back in 10 minutes, so stay by your phone, and we're just going to take a little 10-minute break, and we'll be right back with Eugenia Macer's story, Pulse of the Dragon, and Secret Knowledge of the Pirates. We'll be back very shortly. While you're waiting, go to church.
Hi, this is Rob Simone, and I want to tell you about my brand new show here on the Paranormal Radio Network. Each week, I bring you the most interesting people on the most in-depth discussions and the most controversial issues. We go where no talk show dares to go. Join me every week for the Rob Simone Talk Show here on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Hello, everyone. Trish Sheridan, host of A Global Focus. Come join us each Friday evening at A Global Focus's new time, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Come join the discussion.
Breaking news. Strange black pyramid UFO ships over every major city on the Earth. People are exhilarated and scared. Reptilian strange...
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Light up your night with The Kevin Smith Show. Hi, this is Kevin Smith. Join me Monday through Friday right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Paranormal Radio. Paranormal Radio. Church of Mabus.
It was close down and hiding from the spotlight. And big, long, elongated red the hours of people, apparently and historic, opposed to secret society.
Shut down our government's defense system.
And we are continuing on that the United States Air Force is withholding information from the general public on this subject.
The Church of Mabus.
Welcome back to the Church of Mabus. Got her guest, Eugenia Mazer story about her book, Pulse of the Dragon, Secret Knowledge of the Pirate. Her co-host, Peace Above Ozarod. And just quickly, I'm going to tell you who our guests are for coming month. Stella Okoroja. I know I just said her last name wrong. She wrote Star System. Erica Coach will be co-hosting her next Saturday. September 1st, Michael Blickman, Crop Circles, the Bone God. I believe Jerry Avalos is going to be co-hosting that. September 8th, Keith Oregon, The Dark Side of Cupid, Alien Lake. And everybody's friend, and my friend, Jason Wilson. Me and Jason Wilson have just made up and we're friends again, so he's going to be helping me co-host now Keith Oregon. September 15th, Bigfoot Chicks, Andy Colvin, supposed to co-host with that. September 27th, Jonathan Phillips and Christopher George is going to co-host with that. And that's about Jesus Christ, the Gnostic version. And he wrote Electric Jesus. And then at the end of the month, Richard Grossinger, I believe that's Dark Pool of Light. And I believe Jerry's going to be co-hosting with that. In October, I got a bunch of good stuff coming up, and I'll get a few people above. There's some darker topics might be interested in hanging out with in October.
Awesome.
I'll check with you about that. But yeah, that's our line in September.
Cool.
And just everybody, I've been writing a lot of good Examiner interviews lately. Like I said, Christopher Munch, who did Letters from the Big Man, Paul David, who did Jesus in India, and that Roswell Showtime movie with Martin Sheen back in the day, and Kyle MacLachlan. I just interviewed him on Jesus in India, and on the Showtime Roswell show and his own UFO sighting. So if you go to churchofmabusradio.com, you can access my article there by going to the Examiner link or clicking on the carousel. I just noticed someone in the room named President Obama voter just came in. So shout out to my President Obama homie. I'm just messing with Joe. But yeah, someone really did come in with that name and just surprised me. That's probably Mars Steve.
To the president's in your chat room?
Yeah. He just
That's
said,
awesome.
what's up? And, yeah, the president came to listen to the show today.
That's not bad, dude.
Listen, just my political stance real quick. I know the show before us, I love Joe and Stephanie, but they lean towards the right or whatever. I'm not sure what they lean towards. But anywho, I'm voting for Obama again because even though I think everyone's corrupt in the government, I think he cares more about the poor and more about helping the poor and the middle class than the Republicans do. I don't understand Romney and Ryan at all. They just don't seem like they don't offer any solutions to anything. They just say we're going to cut this, and it just seems like all the stuff they're going to cut is going to kill people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for them.
I second you on that. It's as if they're, speaking of actors and so on, it is as if they're playing roles that that don't connect exactly with the situations that people find themselves in right now. And so I also support Obama.
Yeah, he's kind of like a philosopher king. You know, I think that because he's really well educated and he's got a pretty strong philosophy background, and that's kind of what the Stoics and the original philosophers were thinking of when they were thinking of government, is someone who was a philosopher king, you know, instead of because a lot of the stuff that he's doing seems like really drastic and strange, but it's actually laying a pretty good foundation for a potential future.
I think so, where people are perceiving events on a different level, and I don't mean to be elitist about philosophy, but I think people do need to have a different level of perception of where they are and where they're going, and I agree that Obama does. I think that he tries to communicate on all levels, but I think that his natural mental ability is such that he will, you know, he does that from his own stance, and I like.
He's kind of a pirate in a way, maybe.
Yes, I think so. If you think of his background and coming up in the Chicago area and so on, you have to be very alert, to do that. So, yeah.
I just, I think I want someone that wants to help the poor. I don't want someone that wants to kill the poor. You know?
Yeah.
And what happens is, the more they cut these programs and hurt the poor are going to rise up and rip down every damn thing that's there. Is that what they want?
Right.
What are these Republicans going to do when the poor rise up and riot and start yanking their fat asses out on the street like back in the olden days? You know?
Pulling people through McDonald's drive-thru windows.
Well, did you want to discuss Commander Galacticon?
Yeah, let's get off the politics stuff of it lately. I watched Bill Maher lately, my boyfriend, and think of JoJo and Bill Maher and Anderson Cooper and,
Bill Nice.
All right, who's Commander Galacticon? I'm just messing with Joe. Who's Commander Galacticon?
Okay, Commander Galacticon And it comes through, this is in the play that's part of my book, and the play is based on an actual situation which is very similar. But in the play, Commander Galacticon, a woman is channeling the commander. And it is a terrorist group, or it is a radical, we're back on radical political group. And how they handle this is that they know when their terrorist attacks will occur. And they have the medium, who also is really channeling Commander Galacticon, which is part of the conflict of the play. But anyway, they give her the dates that these attacks will occur. She predicts them, and then the attacks occur, and she gets lots of praise for being accurate, and that is the way that they conceal their activities. This is also based on something that happened in South America where someone was announcing this, but who cares what it's based on? Anyway, in the play, what happens is that they have fooled with the fates, so things start happening. People get stuck in elevators, mysterious poisonous fogs appear, and finally, at the end of the play, a fog, like killing insects or whatever, a fog that cannot be explained, kills
like
the
a fumigation.
commander. Yeah, kills the woman who has been channeling the commander. But it is, this play is based on an actual situation which I mention in the book, and I have also talked about it, I guess I talked about it on the Infinity Factory years ago, is Commander Hatan, H-A-T-O-N, which is a Egyptian deity, but it was supposedly coming through a woman involved with America West publications, and was very radical and probably connected with terrorism and so on. Right. But the fact is that this being seems to be real. Coming through a person is just an American person, not of the Mideast or anything. And it was far right. Speaking of far right, the America West publications were very much far right. But in the play, there's not so much far rightism. They are Spanish people in the play, or the commander is Spanish, her sidekick is. But there are also people, there's Claude, who's from France, and so on. It's an international organization that's represented. But basically the dilemma is that they call forth powers that they didn't think were real. So.
Right. It sounds pretty theosophical in nature, you know, like calling upon like higher powers for wisdom and, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, it is theosophical in a way, but it's what happens when people, they may be theosophical, actually, or you know, like the Real Society, these elitists, and they imperfectly believe in the powers. They believe they are the superior person that's calling the powers. It's like the Faustian thing.
That makes sense.
And so that's the dilemma, but that's what the play is about. And I thought it was best to show it as a play, because then the interplay between the person who is an ordinary woman executive and the commander that she's channeling, you can see it, or you can see it in the interchange between the people.
Right.
So that's why I did it that way.
Yeah. It's kind of a good way to be able to analyze the situation. Is that what you're saying? Because you can see it played out over and over again.
To see it very frequently. Acting things out is a good way to really understand the dynamics. I know. I will say the terrible word Masonic order, because in the Masonic order they do this.
Right.
A lot of what their philosophy is not written down verbatim, but it is acted out.
It's like a psychodrama almost.
Right.
You know, it's like a highly ritual psychodrama.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of the basis for most ceremonial magic. You know, just like today, you know, I mean, I've officiated over weddings before, and today I was at a Catholic wedding, and I mean, I don't have any authority to officiate over the Catholic wedding, but I've always had a lot of respect for all of the ritualism that's involved in all of their ceremonies. I mean, it's tremendous, you know, like all their tools, and I see these types of things as a parallel to what you're talking about.
Exactly. It is very awesome. The Catholic ceremonies are.
Right.
I grew up as a Catholic, I left when I was an adolescent because all of the sexual mis-ups and discrimination against women and so forth. I
Right.
couldn't stay, but the ritual is amazing, and the music is particularly.
Right. I mean, I definitely agree with because I was raised in a fundamentalist, literalist Islamic household, and my mother was Apache Indian, so it was like this earth-based spirituality mixed with this hard solar-based concept. And that's really what there's so many of the fundamentalist religions have all these great points and the beautiful concepts, but one thing that I can't adhere to is the subjugation of women, and the idea of putting people in their place like that, because I don't really think that it exists or should be relevant.
Well, I'm glad of that. I think actually the fact is that they are doing something. When men do that, they are doing something to themselves when they do that, because they're saying they can't admit an ordinary male-female interchange and an equal relationship with the woman, and that's the basic problem, I think.
That's a very important concept to me, is the synergy between masculine and feminine energy. I see myself as incomplete without a feminine part, you know, or at least the consciousness, being conscious of that. And yeah, I mean, I recently had a conversation about this whole concept of the subjugation of the goddess, you know, and it was around like the Iron Age, and you know, I just think it's a really like, it's just a bad thing that happened, you know, because it just kind of demonized a lot of concepts and turned things that were beautiful into things that were hated and feared, you know.
Yes. Well, I think oftentimes men will fear their masculinity, their attraction to women, and women fear the attraction to men. And if we simply had a different way, the right word is in control, a different way of moderating sexuality, ideas about sexuality, because it isn't as simple as you know, like basic male and female. It's also all different degrees and roles and so on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I totally agree with you on that. I mean, it's the idea of, I mean, I see the necessity of homosexuality. I see the necessity of heterosexuality. I think that they're very similar concepts. It's just a matter of attraction and, you know, what you're into or what you're drawn towards. But those principles still exist, you know, in every concept, like what you're saying.
Exactly. I think I have sort of a pansexual. I'm heterosexual, but I have a pansexuality in that I can write characters and I can understand various people, men and various gradations of women who are different than I am. It's probably the telepathic faculty, but
that's an interesting way to look at it. Pansexual. I've never thought of that.
What do you mean exactly by pansexual? Does that have anything to do with the actual pan, or what does that mean? I've heard people say that.
Pan means the whole, like the whole thing, the whole circumference of the circle of possibilities. Not necessarily Pan, the god racing through the forest with a flute or anything, but it means taking it all.
Right. It's like a homogenization of the concept of sexuality in a way.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because androgyny is fascinating, and that's a big part of like a pirate culture in a sense, and a magical culture, and it's a big part of illusion.
Exactly. And I think that the inner nature of people is pansexual, that people can play different roles that you would think of as male or female. It's not just occupation or anything like that. It's how you're reacting, how you're listening, or what's saying, and so forth. And it's not, in a sense, it is androgyny, but it is not. It's a psychological androgyny and not necessarily a physical androgyny.
Is it kind of like an adaptability? Is that where you're going? Like you're adapting more towards just the receiving or sending differently, I guess.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's necessary for communication. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. It comes very naturally to me. I have seen people struggle with this, but usually it's because they have been indoctrinated since they were children about gender roles or what have you.
And that's something that always blew my mind growing up, because I grew up around a lot of strong women and who were very capable, and I never really saw women as typically how I guess society would see you guys.
Right. I don't know. There are lots of strong women in my family also, and sometimes I can be brought up very short by a reaction to me, which is not necessarily prejudicial.
Sure.
It isn't a person trying to exert prejudice. It is a pre-assumption. And
right.
It can
Okay.
startle me.
Yeah. I get that a lot myself. But yeah, I mean, as far as clairvoyance, though, I mean, how much has that developed in your life from the time that you were conscious of all this? Well,
I've always been clairvoyant. As I was as a child, I just didn't realize how clairvoyant. And so it developed, and also it could perceive spirits. And it developed just as I developed. There are a few strong instances where I realized that I was, that there was ESP, telepathy, and so on. But my whole family, my parental family, had ESP experiences and spirit experiences and so on, and would tell me about them. So I never had a problem with it. There's one incident that stands out. I think I was about 7 or 8, and I had a younger brother who died of cancer, and he suffered a lot. He was at home when he died, and I realized when he died, because I had this feeling of peace. I could feel his spirit was happy. And the next morning, he died the hours of the morning. Next morning, I was singing. I was sitting on the porch and singing, and a relative came very worried and said, "You mustn't sing because it makes your mother upset." But I could feel the release from the body, and that stands out because suddenly people were noticing that I was reacting differently. But basically, it's a flow. It is the way I perceive.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything to induce it. I was born that way, which I think is interesting because I think there is such a thing as a hereditary psychic. But it isn't true. It's like hereditary musical ability. It's like if there are 3 children, one child might inherit that, the others not, and so forth, or all 3.
It's in your DNA, kind of, maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty rare experience for someone like yourself. who's a clairvoyant to have been raised in an environment where it was like kind of an accepted concept, or it was an accepted part of people's lives.
Yes, it was. For example, my dad told me from the time I was a small child that he met my mother in Australia when they were both in the Army toward the end of World War II. And he said he didn't know he was going to go into the Army. He was a jazz clarinetist as a young man and was just hanging out in Chicago doing that. And he went into a club, I guess it was the Ivanhoe Club, where they had this fortune teller dressed as a monk. And he read for him. He said, the monk said, "It's the strangest thing, but sometimes I'm more clear on these things than other times." And he said, "I really can tell you." And he told him he would go to Australia. He told him he would meet his future wife there. And he told him some other things that he couldn't possibly have known in any mundane way. Shortly thereafter, I guess my dad was drafted or volunteered or whatever, and there he was. So he told that story a lot to people because you would have to. There was no way that the fortune teller could have known any of these things from the present state. So I heard that, and I heard other stories from the other side of my family too. So I guess so. Maybe that's part of my karma or dharma or whatever, that I have I don't feel that I'm going to be kidnapped by the devil or something if I'm telepathic.
Yeah. I mean, I've known a lot of other people who are psychic and clairvoyant who experience a lot of trouble with religious groups. Either coming out of a fundamentalist household, or being an adult, or still wanting to practice your religion, all that type of stuff.
The fundamentalists are so intolerant, and they don't think of themselves as being. They think of themselves as being very pure and religious. My parents had a neighbor once who was a fundamentalist, who was a big problem. But other than that, I don't have a problem. The reason is that I can sense what their sensitivities are, and I find no reason to, unless they would be harming someone, I don't find any reason to challenge that. They can do as they please.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you're a pirate also.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say so. Yeah.
So, Eugenia, what do we know about, actual pirates, the ones that, the pirate Caribbean type, were they, is that something that you're fluent in as far as what kind of occult stuff they were into as well,
yes,
Star type?
Well, I talk about Captain Kidd in my book. It's Captain Kidd was a magician. However, he was a black magician. He would not. He was a privateer now, not really a pirate. It's sort of like Blackwater is today. But anyway, he would not let the people on his ship use the name of God, and they thought that was very radical. But he had powers. He was able to, say, martial arts powers or whatever.
Sure.
And when he was finally double-crossed and hung, he was double-crossed. He was hired as a privateer, and they were allowed to interfere with ships from other countries and so on. But he interfered with a ship from the East India Company and was arrested and was hung as a pirate. But they had trouble hanging him because the rope kept breaking. His energy kept breaking the rope until finally they were able to hang him. But what was being practiced is probably because Kidd was from British background, probably what we would call Celtic magic or whatever, but it was black magic. I mean, he sailed out of London at first.
Sure.
So that is known. And the other pirates, Morgan, the one in the Caribbean, was also a black magician of sorts, was using magic and so on.
Right.
And Lafitte, the Jean Lafitte, from New Orleans was a pirate. He called himself a privateer. I think he was actually a pirate.
Right.
And but he helped the revolutionaries during the American Revolution. So they have all these honors and special memorials to Jean Lafitte.
Sure.
So
he's kind of like an anti-hero.
Exactly, but he was a blacksmith, and a number of the people who were pirates in the old days were smithies because they were as in New Orleans now, all the ironwork.
Right.
They were making talismans magical talismans out of iron, and so. But there are other pirates. Obviously, there are pirates of the present day.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that a lot of the time. Like, there are literal pirates today that are cruising around on boats with like 50 caliber machine guns and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
And I think people are very foolish about that. All of these tourists are people that just go out there on a yacht or whatever, and they sail right into their
right on the international waters. You know.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. But what about Blackbeard? Blackbeard's always been one of my favorite pirates, and I mean he was pretty intense in a lot of ways, and I think that he was a type of a magician. And I mean he changed the more or less created the Jolly Rogers, you know, because the Jolly Rogers wasn't terrifying enough of a symbol for him, you know. So he kind of altered it, you know, and made it his own flag, and he was generally just like fearsome in his appearance, you know, and his approach to everything. So I mean, I'm pretty positive that he was probably some type of magician also.
Oh yes, yeah, and I think sometimes it's like a natural thing that happens if someone needs to say you have to hold your gang or you have to hold your crew. And so what happens is you completely astound them by your ability in that, and it holds them. And I think that's part of the entire piracy situation, too.
Like the glamoury.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like they would fill their crew full of superstition.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty interesting tactic.
Yes.
So how would they, most of their treasure they got stealing it, but they would stash it in places, and they knew about locations that most normal people didn't know about, right? I mean, is that where the ley lines fit in? They would follow the ley lines and stuff?
Yes. In the book I write about locations near Nova Scotia, but there are also locations around New York Harbor and up the Hudson that have this quality. People who are in those locations, forget about pirates for a minute, people that are in those locations experience time anomaly, and they see apparitions and so on. So if you're going to hide a ship, a good place to hide it is that, because people coming into that area would perhaps be more confused than someone who was familiar with it. Now, the Catskill Mountains near where I live have had quite a few gangsters and mob people have lived in the hills.
Right.
And near Albany particularly, the bluffs of Albany, and there are other locations near Cairo, New York, and so on. That has this quality. I've experienced it myself. It takes you by surprise. You're driving, you're going somewhere, not to investigate it, but you're just going through it on a road, and it become confused about direction and time and so on. Sometimes there are strange fogs in these areas also.
Yeah, that happened to me in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. When I was out there and I was walking around, searching for like the Jersey Devil and all that. and I experienced a pretty serious loss of direction. I mean, I'm an experienced like woodsman, you know. I go out and hang out in the woods a lot, and I ended up getting lost in there overnight, and it was like one of the most terrifying things.
Was that anywhere near Blairstown?
I'm not quite sure about that, but I was I had come off the highway, and I was with some friends. And we were around the area, and I wanted to check out the Jersey Devil, and I mean nobody else wanted to, but I went and checked it out, and I had a pretty random adventure, but yeah.
Yeah. Also, once again, I have to mention my article, Citron Returns, because in the third section of that, I talk about that area. It's not necessarily the Pine Barrens, but it is near Lake Hopatcong, which used to be a Native American sacred place, and it is there, and then toward, I believe it's westerly of that people have experienced really unusual phenomena.
Right.
And I was just on a bus, and I did experience some stuff there. I had earlier, which is why I was alert for it, it was a bus ride. There's a literary magazine that is in a town that's a little bit further on the bus line, and so I had been going there to give a poetry reading, and I didn't suddenly I realized that I was in this strange mental state, and then I thought, it's Lake Hopatcong. I've heard of it before.
Right. Yeah.
So on the second trip by, I was ready. It is an unusual place, and some pictures I took there are unusual, but it is, when I researched it, I found out that it is a Native American sacred place there. It's not, they knew that it was unusual.
So what happened to the other people on the bus? Were there other people on the bus? Did they seem to be aware of something happening also? Or
The first trip through was a crowded commuter crowd. It was, when did I go? It must have been about 5 in the afternoon or something, because everybody was getting on the bus to go home. So I couldn't tell that anyone noticed anything.
Yeah.
I did. The second time, there weren't as many people on the bus because it was the morning. It was Saturday morning, and I couldn't. Once again, I couldn't tell. I was focused on. The pictures that I took, there are empty seats there. I was sitting across the aisle from the lake, and I took some pictures over the lake, and you can see the seat backs. There were very few people on the bus. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think that the people who were there at 5 were more preoccupied with going home. They're used to taking this route, you know, so they probably just didn't pick up on it, or they're just maybe used to feeling weird, you know, about that time of day.
Yeah, you can get used to it. I know in Woodstock, where I lived, there is an unusual vibe here. Sometimes people claim it's the original Sleepy Hollow. There is an unusual vibe, but you do get used to it. It is. It still has its eerie quality in that it does seem to facilitates telepathy as well as being an unusual time faculty. And I'm always surprised with it. If I truly need something, it can be very mundane. I need another package of spaghetti or something like that, and I know everything is closed. I will find it if I really go out. And look, it has this quality. So.
My girlfriend has that ability with lottery scratch-offs. Like every now and then she'll be like, I'm kind of broke. And then she'll go to the gas station and pick up a scratch-off, and she'll win like $40-50, you know. And it happens like almost every time that she does it. But she doesn't seem to be, she doesn't really see the phenomenon, you know?
That's interesting. I shy away from those things because I know I have this ability, and I feel I shouldn't tip the scales of fate. My cousin prevailed on me. There's a gambling boat. My father's family comes from Evansville, Indiana, and there's a gambling boat which is in the Mississippi there.
I'm in Indianapolis, actually, Indiana right now. So I know what you're talking about up there.
Right. So my cousin persuaded me to go on the gambling boat, and all the the slot machines and everything, and she actually staked me some money. I said, "No, I don't really like to gamble." I broke even. I did not win a whole lot, but I didn't lose a whole lot. But I have a strange feeling about gambling. I don't like to do it.
I'm not very good at it at all. I'm terrible at gambling, so I avoid it also, because anytime I do it, I might win something, or nothing happens, or I lose. So yeah, I mean, I just don't have very good odds with that.
Right.
Do we need more pirates? Do we need more pirates today? And we have the ones that are like, I forget what they're from. They're kind of, I guess, that pirates always just been in it for themselves. Or it seems like they at least steal from the rich, which is a good thing, I guess. But for them mostly, they don't really do the Robin Hood thing on any level. And I guess I'm trying to think of modern day pirates. I keep thinking of maybe Anonymous, even though they may be spooked, I'm not sure, but they're kind of like pirates. They wear masks and weird stuff.
Yeah, they're less positive. I have something to say about Anonymous, but before that, I want to say there are less positive pirates than that. There are the Nigerian pirates that are on the internet, and they are very skilled. Right. At conning people, and also at cyber stuff. Right. I've had challenges from them at various points because they really are into sorcery and so on. I've had actually phone calls from them trying to fool me. Right. But so I know that there is a piracy there. But Anonymous, by the way, is so amazing. They emailed me years ago. There was a minor scandal when one of my plays was done in Boston, and I was accused of plagiarizing Robert Lowell. I didn't at all. It was that there was a verse. There was some music and lyrics in the play. Sure. And there was a verse that resembled some of his poetry, and someone wrote a review saying that that I'd copied from Lowell, and I didn't, and I had to write a letter back to the editor and so on. So all this is recorded in print. About 6 months ago, I got an email from Anonymous saying, "You are exonerated of this." I could not believe
That's
it.
Funny.
That they probably have ways to go back into journalistic files and so on. But I just found that so amazing. So they
just like intervened,
that.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely amazing. However, that can be used negatively. What can be used positively in terms of finding out details about someone can also be used for blackmail, and that's the the downside of it. But the Nigerians, give them credit; they are very, very skilled at the cyber world. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of random emails about the Nigerian prince who wants to give you large sums of money, and he'll put that money in your bank account, after you deposit this much money in their bank account, that type of thing. And I've seen a lot of other, I guess, pirated ideas show up like that. So
right. And it's not that they're all located in Nigeria, although some identify there. It's also in Amsterdam, and they got involved at one point with. I was thinking of Switzerland. I started to get emails as if there was going to be an arts conference, and I caught on to it. I think, you see, in these very disadvantaged countries, someone who is very bright will try to get out, and the way that they have to get out is maybe when they're very young, signing on with a pirate ship, signing on with some of these people that are pulling off this stuff because they're bright enough to be able to do the cyber work and so on. So,
it's like a diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question from our audience. It's from Nora's boy in the chat room. did the women pirates, Anne Bonny and Mary Read, bring feminine energy to piracy? Did their gender bring a different energy from males to piracy? Do you know anything about those pirates?
Yeah, I believe though they masqueraded as men. They were not. I think. Right. I don't know anything in detail of that, but I believe one of the ways that they were able to function as pirates is that they were masquerading as men. So
right.
Any sort of feminine energy would not be like, a feature film where Madonna is a pirate or something like this. It would be different than that. But I can't, that's just my impression. I haven't researched them, so I don't know.
Yeah, most of the way people know pirates is simply from movies and stuff, and I guess some history and stuff. But like Pirates of the Caribbean, I just saw a great little mini series, Treasure Island. They redid it. It had Elijah Wood in it. That was excellent. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was a new one, but it was great. It was great. They were all fighting on Treasure Island over the treasure with the British and a big mess. I think it was on BBC, but that was really good. But yeah, I've always liked pirates, but mostly that's why I'm so interested in the show and learning from you, because I've never really got into pirates. I only know them from Hollywood movies and stuff. So that's why the show's so interesting.
Right, Treasure Island is the black spot, isn't it? Is that the part of the plot? They draw lots.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter, but I thought I was thinking of occult and lottery pastimes. That's part of, I think, Treasure Island.
Right, like games of chance.
Yeah.
Like Liar's Dice and Rolling Bones and all that fun stuff. Bowling. Yeah. I think pirates did a lot of bowling, with bones and skulls and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
I guess you got to do something. Yeah, I guess you got to do something to pass the time. Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on interdimensionally? I've heard you talk about a chess game taking place between interdimensional beings who may have malicious intentions towards humanity, compared to ones that have our best interest at heart. Do you really feel that there are beings out there that are manipulating us a scale from other dimensions?
Yes, and I think that this is what John Keel mentioned as in the Eighth Tower, that there is something is going on with control of behaviors and so on that comes from another dimension or from a different level of mental activity. Jacques Vallée talks about this too. It's like that. It is beings. The game pieces are beings. It's not in our concept, because we're all human beings that could have various different capacities, but these angels and so forth have exact functions. There's a hierarchy of them. For example, the angel Gabriel is closer to the earth. This is the Western system, but the angel of Gabriel would be closer to the earth. And then if you go up a scale about 8 octaves, you get to Metatron, who is one of the higher angelic beings. I'm not going to mention the demonic beings. It's not good to call them by name. They might come.
Sure.
But that's, yes, and they have different functions. And, of course, in different shamanic traditions, the different beings have different functions. But it is like playing a game on the higher level. It is like playing chess. And these beings, a hand comes down and it moves. Angel Gabriel, who announces to the mother of Jesus that she has just going to have a child and so forth. And then this is figurative speaking, the hand comes down and moves the angel Gabriel over to when it makes his next announcement, like on a chessboard, because they have different functions and they don't have the same. obviously there are many different possibilities. The angel Gabriel could appear to a number of different people. So that being has its function to intervene in material affairs in one system. But that's what I mean, that there is some higher. These angels are conceptualized as being almost like a military organization, both the demons and the angels, and so the higher power moves the lower one. And they have different capabilities and so forth. And they are playing Battle of Angels as a common concept. Various angels are fighting with each other or fighting with demonic entities. And
right.
There is a concept which is called the 11th heaven in Kabbalism. There are 10 Sephirah, and you go through dots, and there would be 10 matching Nephilim. And, however, the 11th heaven is where the demonic intelligences are. It's one step past the 10 angelics, and it is in hell. They are in hell. But I mean, it's a complex philosophical concept, but it is
sure.
Part of that tradition.
Mm. So, is it just a duality, or is there more sides to this? Do you think, or is this just from one concept?
Which is the duality, though? Is
it just between good and evil, or is there like a third side? Do you think?
I think there is a third side, but then you can get into this Nietzschean thought of all things are relative, the beyond good and evil and so on. But right. I that it's in the context and in the intent. But there is a form of evil, and this is some of the things I'm writing now that haven't finished yet, have to do with my encounter with this, which is breathtaking. There is a form of evil which intends to destroy.
Right, okay.
Function intends to destroy. And a lot of times people underestimate this, or they underestimate someone who is possessed by it, because you always think you're going to be able to reason or bribe or something. You can't.
Right.
Its function is to destroy.
There's some things that are just final, like it's a finality.
Right.
Right, like an absolute.
And I think a lot of people are quick to, like lately, when something bad happens, they automatically assume Black Ops or Illuminati, and maybe that could be true for some things, but some people seem to just dismiss that maybe it's just good old-fashioned evil making people do crazy stuff, like when you eat someone's face balls or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It isn't always an organized conspiracy of Illuminati or Masons or anything else, although, you have bad eggs in that as well.
Sure.
But it is this force, this destructive force. And I don't mean by that the Shiva force, which is something else, but this force it's I would say vampiric, but we don't have a word for it, or I don't know the word for it in English, but it means to devour, to take energy and to destroy, which is a lot different than the Shiva force, which is to change events. There is a destruction that occurs when events must be changed.
Right.
But this other is awful, and I'm trying to describe them.
It sounds like oblivion. It sounds like a sense of oblivion, like nothingness, Just a complete absence of matter and life and everything like that.
Exactly, something like that. Just no.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I guess my problem with I'm around a lot of Christians and stuff, and part of me wants God to like turn into Batman and just come down here and start kicking evil's ass, and it just doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen, So I get frustrated. Like I watched that movie Machine Gun Preacher again recently with Gerard Butler, and I would highly recommend it. The guy from 300. It's based on Sam Childers, and basically he was a heroin addict and like a gangster biker, and he would break in and steal drugs, and it's a true story. But he found God and Jesus, and then he went to church, and I guess he got sick of it, so he decided to go to Africa to help people there, and he started helping the little black kids that are being, exterminated and handed machine guns and piled up in stacks of bodies by the evil side over there. And he decides, screw it, I'm going to pick up a machine gun. He starts killing all the evil dudes over there and protecting these kids and building schools. And that story really touched me, and I was like, gosh, that's like, maybe God is kicking some ass. He just needs people to do it for him, on some level. But that's my big problem with the good side. I just wish it would kind of like intervene more on all the great.
Some people have the philosophy, speaking of intervening, that it is wrong to intervene. I've had this argument with a number of different people about on certain specific issues, like if you see a crime being committed, should you intervene? Or if you see domestic violence, should you intervene? And people are reluctant. I guess they've been taught maybe not to interrupt or something. They don't conceive of citizen's arrest or whatever, that it is possible to intervene. People are regulated.
That's something that we've been talking about actually for the last 2 weeks at the Electric Eye Radio Show, and it was the idea of heroes and villains, and how all of these people are rising up and shooting up movie theaters and schools, and there's all these attacks and all of this, but nobody is balancing that out. Like, where's the hero? There's all these supervillains, but when is Batman going to intervene? Exactly. It doesn't seem like ever. And a lot of the times in my life, I have not been reluctant to intervene in a lot of things, and I've ended up getting in a lot of trouble over that, or getting injured, or being suspect.
I think that's what people fear. That and of course, it's cowardly to not to help somebody because you think you're going to be hurt. But I think that's the problem. And just that the civilization in the U.S. is great. We are one of the most civilized countries in the world, but that we are over-regulated. People are waiting to get their scores, get their tax forms filled out exactly correctly, and so on. So in an emergency, of course, a physical emergency, a fire or something, everybody leaps into activity. But on other levels, they don't. They wait for the police or something to happen.
And it's kind of like what you're describing with this intrinsic evil that's devouring everything, is that it's like this sense of finality in people's in action. It's almost like you're just standing there allowing it to happen, and and you're terrified to do anything. But I don't know if it's my fear that turns into motivation to intervene, or if I'm just an idiot. But in any case, in any time like this recently, I was in an altercation, breaking up a fight between people, and I had to go. I got my tooth knocked out, and I had to go to court over it. And it wasn't very fun. But I did it without thinking.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm sorry, but we're at the end here. I gotta end this other trucker. So it's time. My producer, the curtain has to close. So I apologize. It's been a great show, though. And Eugenia, what is your main link? I definitely want you to give that out before we depart.
Okay. I'll give you a minimal URL which has my other links on it, which is e-macer-story.com. And on that are links to 4 websites. My main website really is Magic Mirror, M-A-G-I-C-K, mirror.com. But the other sites have things on them, like yankeeoracle.org has my Citron returns article, and fluidice.com, Fluidice.com, has my technical articles on it. But if you go to the one that I gave first, the links will be on there.
All right, and Beelzebub, what's your link real quick for your radio show?
Well, we recently just built a Facebook page, so just go check out the Electric Eye Radio Show on Facebook, or go to the Table Tappers Union at bigorbs.com. And also I had a really nice time talking to you, Eugenia. I really appreciated the conversation.
Thank you. The same here. It was a very good conversation.
Thanks.
All right, I appreciate it. It's a great show. We'll see everybody next Saturday, and everybody have a good weekend and stay out of trouble. And check out churchofmabusradio.com. This is UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Keep on rocking in the free world and all that jazz. We'll catch you next Saturday. Take care. Good night.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Benetti, and along with Joe Montaldo, we co-host a new show called News on the Flip Side. You can catch us every Saturday night, 8 p.m. Central, where we will be discussing current news and topics going on in the world today. We have opinions on everything. There's no topic that we won't discuss, and we'll go places other shows wouldn't dare. False history